What's up, fellas? Just out here on a walk. Doing another, what did I call it last time? A stroll and suppose. You could call it a stride and speak. Maybe a walk and wonder. Just had a thought and I was like, maybe I'll jump on this video, create another midweek delight. Just had a thought. When did we stop doing recess? You know, as kids, when you're in the structured educational system, we pretty consistently have a good structure for recess. You know, at some point it might turn into like PE or sports, but there's always like a designated time for physical activity, typically outside. Of course, if it's cold, then maybe you're in a gymnasium. Not as good, but that's when you play dodgeball and stuff like that. So there's reparations that make it worthwhile. But for the most part, recess is a huge part, a fundamental part of the structure of our educational system until at some point recess ends. And that's still part of the educational system. You know, when you get into middle school and high school, maybe recess is replaced by sports. And that's still good. This dog's going to town. That's still good, but that's not like in the middle of the day trying to rejuvenate and like restore the focus of kids. Usually sports, because practices are, longer and wear people out. It's at the end of the day, right? It's like additional to their school day. So recess is like not a sport. It's part of maintaining a high quality educational experience. It's part of keeping their learning levels, their cognition high, right? Because we know the research says kids can only focus for so long and they need to get outside and they need to move. They need to see some sunlight. They need that full spectrum light hitting their eyes. They probably need to burn off some energy. They just need to do something different to restore their ability to focus. There is no research that says that need stops or goes away. Like adults don't just magically have the ability to focus longer. Adults do have the conscientiousness and the awareness to say, I need to do this work, and then they can try to choose to focus longer, or they can create more discipline and force themselves to focus longer. But our base level ability to stay focused on a task without needing to change it up, without needing to be refreshed, that doesn't go away. And even just like being inside under the false lights, the fraudulent light bulbs, it ain't that. We can only do so much with that before we feel the effects. There's a reason why going outside feels rejuvenating. So I was just thinking to myself, like, okay, so recess at some point goes away. It's not part of the educational structure anymore. The need for recess remains within our humanity. So really what we need to think about is the shift of the responsibility for recess. Whoever's responsible for being the proprietor of recess for ourselves goes from whoever the teacher is, whoever's creating the class schedule, shifts to ourselves. Of course, you can't control your, schedule when you're still going through the educational system when you're in middle school and high school, but you can when you're an adult, and a lot of people just don't. They don't do recess. They don't go outside. I'm fortunate enough to work from home, and albeit there's some days where my schedule doesn't allow it and I'm pissed when I can't get outside, especially right after my lunch break. But in general, I'm fortunate enough that I can take my own recess. When I worked in the office, I would still take a recess. I would eat lunch and then I would go outside. And you know what? I can throw a bunch of facts at you. In fact, I will. We know that taking a walk for at least 10 minutes after a meal aids in digestion, also aids in nutrient partitioning, aka our body's ability to, be like a triage assessor of the food we ate and decide how we're going to use that food. So greater nutrient partitioning. I'm about to drop my tennis ball, carrying a tennis ball because I'm ADHD. I do that on walks. Greater nutrient partitioning essentially means our body is better at deciding, okay, this meal that we ate This amount of it is just going to go straight to blood sugar because we need the energy right now, or maybe we don't need it. This amount is going to go to rebuilding muscles. This amount is going to go to the calcium deposit turnover in our bones, osteoclasts and osteoblasts. Hit a stranger with the term osteoclast and osteoblast. Hey, how's your osteoclast and osteoblast recycle system going? Is it optimized? Are you calcium deficient? Maybe you need some vitamin D, some magnesium. You can hit him with that, or you can talk about the sodium potassium pump. Oh my gosh. Talk about action potentiation within the neuron. The axon, technically, of the neuron. That's part of the neuron. We got sidetracked. Anyway, so digestion walks are really good. So you should go outside after a meal to get a digestion walk. That's a reason. You should go outside and get into the sun because your body can make vitamin D. And what the latest research says, like 78% of Americans are deficient in some level of vitamin D. By the way, vitamin D is closer to a hormone than it is a vitamin. It almost should be called hormone D. It's hugely important for the hormone regulation within your own body, but we classified it as a vitamin because of the way our body interacts with it. So that's another reason. Also, spoiler alert, the lights inside is not the same as the lights outside. You know, just turning on a light inside is not, even though we can physically see, it's not the full spectrum of UV light. What does that mean? It doesn't do the same thing for our eyes. We talked about in the last video, if you don't use it, you lose it. And that's not a all-encompassing concept, but it is definitely applicable to this situation. You want to protect your vision, you want to keep yourself having good vision for a long time, you need to be outside where we have the full UV spectrum light coming from the sun. Even if it's cloudy, even if it's kind of dark, you still have the spectrum of light, the full spectrum of light, of which we might not be like conscientiously perceiving that we're seeing, you know, a certain spectrum of light, but we are. And it allows our eyes to do what they're supposed to do, as opposed to an indoor light, which only uses a narrow band. And there's a reason for that. You don't want to get a sunburn from your inside light. We're not going to use a heat lamp, you know, because our electric bill would be insanely high. Also, it would heat up the room. Also, you would get a sunburn. There's, you know, practical reasons why, you know, we have a narrow spectrum of UV light that we emit from our interior lighting. But at the same time, if you want to keep your eyes healthy and you don't want to be sad and you want to stay healthy, go outside and get under the big light instead of just being under the small fraudulent light, as I like to call it. So there's a lot of reasons. There was other ones I was thinking of. I can't remember what they are right now. Oh, I mean, we talked about in my last video, just overall resiliency. Get outside, become more resilient. Give your body opportunities to either have to work to warm itself up in cold environments or cool itself down in cold environments within reason. You know, you got to go back inside and you got to sell something. You maybe don't want to be drenched in sweat, but you know, that's for you to figure out how it relates to your workday. There's any number of reasons why recess is important, more than just getting outside, doing something different, giving yourself a cognitive break from the load that it's been under, you know, disciplined for the last couple hours, giving yourself a break, allowing yourself to be refreshed, come back in with a renewed sense of focus and discipline. Getting your heart pumping, cardiovascularly. A walk really isn't zone 2 cardio, but it's pretty close. I mean, you hear me, I'm able to talk and have a conversation, although I am a little out of breath. This probably isn't super pleasant to listen to. And for those of you that don't know about the different zones of cardio, they classify how fast your heart is beating during a particular set of activity as different zones. So not just literally your heart rate, but it's like, okay, you're doing these activities and your heart is under 100 beats per minute. That's a certain zone of cardio. If it's above 100 beats per minute and below 120 beats per minute, that's a certain zone of cardio. And I can't say the specific numbers because a lot of people don't agree on what zone 1 is versus zone 2 versus zone 3. But in general, zone 0 and zone 1 are like you're at rest. You know, there's barely any load on your heart by whatever activity that you're doing for a sustained amount of time. Zone 2 is what we would call like light exercise, you know, probably more than a walk, unless you're walking uphill or maybe you're walking and talking the whole time like I am. But zone 2 would be, you know, your heart is working. You're not necessarily extremely out of breath. You could probably hold a conversation, but it's not super comfortable, you know? So maybe biking pretty hard. maybe not pretty hard, but biking moderately, that would be zone 2, right? Zone 3 is getting into like exercise. You probably can't hold a conversation. Zone 4, blah, 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 blah. And there's lots of research that is connected to how many minutes per week you should spend in each zone to protect your heart, to keep yourself in the most optimal of conditions. By the way, in the olden days, when you're just working, you just were in these different zones of cardio. If you were hunting an animal and chasing it down, hold on, this guy's got to rip past me in his Hyundai accent. No hate for it, but anyway, if you were chasing an animal, you were probably in zone 4 or zone 5 cardio, right? Fighting for your life. If you were like a construction worker, even now, you probably spend most of your day in zone 2 cardio because you're lifting things, you're moving it, you're going up and down, whatever, blah, blah, blah. The research says you should spend I think 150 minutes a week in zone 2 cardio, spread out throughout your day or throughout your week. This is another, probably more than you bargained for when you clicked on this video, but that's another thing, right? If you go outside and you walk, you are definitely in zone 1, perhaps in zone 2 cardio, and you're contributing to your cardiac load, the healthy cardiac load throughout the week, contributing to your overall health. Hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully it's watchable. If it's not watchable, it's listenable. It might not be either one, because I know the screen is shaking and I'm giving you this neck and chin view. This is the mustache view video. And then if you aren't watching it and you're just listening, terrible ASMR experience. I'm half out of breath. And there may be wind buffeting, audio buffeting from the wind. But just wanted to hit you with a thought, with a stroll and suppose, a stride and speak, a walk and wonder, wondering when did recess go away? And from a philosophical standpoint, did it transition to our responsibility to do recess for ourselves? Just something to think about. Exercising is great. Everybody should work out. It doesn't necessarily have to be with weights. It could be rock climbing, whitewater rafting. That'd be pretty random if you were doing that every day. But honestly, sweet lifestyle, surfing, exercise, weights. But in addition to that, in addition to your dedicated exercise, you should do recess. Not because recess is this need for exercise, but because if you think about what humans are designed to do, we're designed to be able to move a lot, many times throughout the day, throughout the week. It doesn't mean everybody has to do the same thing. We've got all these different body shapes, mentally, what we're able to do, mentally, what we like to do. But just find ways and reasons to move, and recess is essentially a simulation of that. But an important one. And at some point it stopped in our lifestyle. It was no longer programmed into our educational system, and it was up to us. And I think a lot of people are failing the PE class, the personal recess class, getting an F. And I'm here to help. Recess is in, Also, great TV show.